Hi, everyone. My name's Mia Lorick, and I'm an attorney with RMWBH Law. And as you know, I'm here to talk about how change starts in the mirror. This is intended to be a discussion to highlight what we can personally do to affect change. I'll tell you admittedly that it's not going to be warm and fuzzy and give you warm feels all over, that the conversation is going to be a little uncomfortable. Because it's my belief that in order to affect change, you have to get a little uncomfortable and you have to hear things that you may not want to hear. But it's my hope that when you leave here, you'll have ideas, thoughts, and a desire to be a voice of leadership within your organization. Now, I've attended a lot of diversity and inclusion conferences. I've read a lot of articles, I've read a lot of books. And one of the common themes in those conferences is that you need to have male allies so that you can express how you feel and they can affect change in the organization. Or that you need to inform your C-suite and promote people into the C-suite that know about diversity and inclusion so that we can affect change. Well, yes, and I agree with all of those statements. Those are all very important to your organization. But I also believe that some of the problems within our organizations is because of you. Some of you right now are the reason that we don't have equality in some of our organizations to the extent that we should. And I don't mean that to say that anything you've done has been intentional or malicious or done with an ill spirit. I mean that to say that it may be unconscious, that we all have experiences, beliefs, we've had challenges, we have opinions that shape who we are as people. And in that, it's natural to project that onto other people, even when we don't intend to. And so what I mean by that is that how you affect change in your organization requires that you put those opinions, those personal beliefs, and those experiences to the side sometimes and realize that not everyone has the same experiences as you do. You may be asking what I'm talking about, and so I'll give you an example. Maybe you're a woman who's had a baby, and you had your baby and you said, I want to take the full amount of maternity leave and I want to go part-time after the 3 months so that I have the most time with my child because I really value family time over work. And that's great. You went home, you had a great experience, you're back at work, but you were 3 months out and you were 3 months part-time. And now let's fast forward to 6 years later, 8 years later, 10 years later, and you're at a decision-making table and you're thinking about somebody within your organization for a promotion or for a special project. And you're sitting there and you're looking at the names of the people and you're thinking who would be perfect for this promotion or for this project. And you say, well, you know, Rebecca really fits everything that we need for this position, but, you know, she's 8 months pregnant and she's not going to want to take on that extra work. She's going to want to have time with her baby at home. So I'm going to look at John instead because I already know what it's like to have a baby and Rebecca's not going to want that. And maybe you do that without ever having a conversation with Rebecca. That's not malicious. Actually, it's you probably being sensitive to some of the things that Rebecca may be going through. But within our organizations, we owe it to that person to have a conversation, to ask them what they want, what they expect out of the position, if they want that responsibility, or if they'd rather be considered for the next opportunity that presents itself. And maybe you're sitting there and you're saying, well, Mia must not have children because if she had children, she would understand that, you know, you just need to be at home. Well, I will tell you that I have a daughter, Scotland, and she's 4 years old. And when I was about 7 months pregnant with her, I was preparing for a trial. And a few of my partners at my law firm, who were my bosses, they sat me down and they said, look, we know you're 7 months pregnant. This trial could be a lot of work. We don't want to put too much on you. Do you think that this is something that you can handle? Because we can have somebody else step in. It's no ding to you. We just want to make sure that you're okay. Or you can handle it just like nothing's going on and you just tell us if you need a break or that sort of thing. but I was given the option. And I handled that trial, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my career. But had I just been replaced without ever being asked, it may have been detrimental to my career, and it may not have given me the experience that I need to then handle later cases. And so what I'm saying to you is to make sure that you're at least giving women or these employees the opportunity to have that conversation, and that you're not being a roadblock for them unintentionally. Now, maybe you're not the decision maker and you're the person sitting at the table while these decisions are being made. You also have a responsibility to speak up when those conclusions or decisions are being made without further consideration. Sitting at that table gives you the opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute. Why don't we ask her what she wants? Why don't we find out what her plan is when she goes out for maternity leave to find out what it is she wants? Or wait a minute, why are we assuming that somebody who has 3 children under 3 doesn't want to be on this project? It's all about having open discussion and realizing that not everyone is the same, because that's the first step to making sure that we really have an inclusive environment. Now, speaking up also requires that you speak up not just when it's comfortable, but that you speak up in situations when it's uncomfortable, when you may ruffle feathers. And a lot of us, myself included, have sat in conversations, we've sat in meetings where things that are inappropriate are said. Maybe it's a comment about a woman saying, oh, she's hot, or I'd really like to work with her because she's so pretty, or she has big boobs, or I don't know what it is. But we've all sat there and we've said nothing because we don't want to speak up. We don't want to be perceived as if we're not one of the guys, if we're have that in. And so what I'm saying to you is when those comments are made, when those racially insensitive jokes are being made, you owe it to yourself to speak up and say, this isn't okay. And I don't fault you, because I've been in that situation. I've been the person who said, I don't want to say anything. I don't know how this is going to be perceived. But now's the time to change that. Now's the time to say, I'm going to be the person that speaks up no matter what. Now, there's also the group that doesn't have a seat at the table, the group that, is in the first 1 to 5 years of their career. They're not in the meetings. They're not at the decision-making tables. And you're probably sitting there and you're saying, yep, tell them, Mia, tell them how they need to change the organization. But I'm also talking to you, okay? I'm talking to you because we owe it to ourselves, no matter what level we are at within the organization, to speak up and affect change. And how does this present itself if you're not in the decision-making room? You still have a voice. Your voice isn't silent. And sometimes it's not about speaking up on a big issue. Sometimes it's about checking yourself and saying, well, wait a minute, I'm not being as cordial or as inclusive of this other woman or this other minority or this person with a disability as I should be. It's saying, wait a minute, maybe I've pulled up the ladder. Maybe I'm a 3rd year in my organization and I'm not properly mentoring the people that are within their 1st year or the people that are interning, and looking at it that way. Maybe instead of complaining and sitting there and saying, the organization doesn't have this, it doesn't have that, figuring out a way to make it happen. When I was a 1st-year lawyer, and even before being hired at my law firm, I looked at our firm's website and I noticed that we didn't have a diversity and inclusion statement, and a lot of law firms that I was looking at did. And I remember sitting there and talking to some friends and kind of saying, well, that must mean that, they don't really value diversity and they don't really value inclusion. And I started working at the firm and it was quite the opposite. The firm was very diverse. There were always discussions about diversity and inclusion and what we could do and how we could implement policies. It was just that I guess nobody had really taken the time to write something out or put it on the website. The website was kind of evolving at the time. And so as a 1st-year lawyer, I drafted it. I said, I'm going to draft something that reflects the climate that I see within the firm, and I'm going to propose it to the equity partners, and I may never get a response, but at least I'm doing something other than complaining. I proposed it. And within 30 seconds of me hitting send on the email, I got a call from our managing partner who said, "This is amazing. We're rolling it out on the website. We want you to direct the program. We want you to be in charge of it. This is exactly the leadership that we're looking for." And I've really never looked back as far as speaking up or feeling like I was too junior to speak up and make those decisions. So as you go forward, I want you to understand that no matter what your role is, I mean, we're talking receptionist, intern, all the way up to the C-suite, you can do things that affect change within the organization. Now, one of the other areas that a lot of women are hesitant sometimes to speak up in is during like an annual review negotiation type setting. And I've talked to a lot of women and they come out of that review and they're like, "You know what? I didn't get the money I wanted. And it's because I'm a woman, and it's because of this, and it's because of that." And what I'm saying to you is that there could be those sentiments, and there could be some of that happening in that review, but make sure that you've done everything you need to do to be prepared. Make sure that you go in and you speak up, that you advocate for what you want, that you go in with raw numbers about why you should get paid what you should get paid, or why you're the best person for the promotion. Only then, when you know that you've done every single thing that you can to advocate for yourself and for other people within the organization, can you look at those other reasons and maybe say some of this is at play. But we have to stop putting the blame on other people and putting the fault in hands when we have a responsibility to ourselves and to others coming up behind us to make sure that we affect change. So as you sit here, my goal is for you to ask yourself, is there something that you can do today, tomorrow, next week, no matter how small, that affects change? Is there something that you've done in the past where you've judged somebody, that you've voiced an opinion or didn't voice an opinion that you shouldn't have, or that you should have? If that's the case, then I ask you to go into all situations with a little bit more pause, with a little bit more thought, and say, is there another way to look at this? Is there another way to handle this? I want all of us to sit here and to be the change that we want to see, be the change that we ask for repeatedly at these diversity conferences. And I'll leave you with this. One of my favorite quotes is from Sheryl Sandberg, and it says, "We cannot change what we are not aware of, but once we're aware, we cannot help but change." Everyone, look in the mirror and ask yourselves, is there something that I can do within myself to better change how equality and diversity is happening within my organization? And I submit to you all that as you go out into the world, as you return to your organizations and you turn off this video, that you implement that change, and you will be surprised at the results that we will get. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Mia Lorick, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this talk.